pair of landmark cases before the U.S. Supreme Court could determine the future of social media. The court has been asked to decide on whether laws that limit online content moderation are constitutional. At issue is whether platforms can choose for themselves what content they allow on their sites. Florida and Texas laws allow individuals to sue tech companies for alleged violations. Plaintiffs arguing that such laws infringe on companies' First Amendment rights and promote harmful content such as hate speech and election misinformation. For more on this, let's bring in Professor Blake Klinkner of the University of North Dakota School of Law. Great to have you on the program. Is content moderation a form of editorial discretion?
I would argue that it is. Historically, newspapers and other entities like news stations have been allowed to engage in moderation of content. They can pick and choose who they wish to broadcast or publish. They can decide who not to, and that is part of their well-established First Amendment rights, and I would argue that social media also enjoys the same sort of an editorial First Amendment right.
So First Amendment experts warn that either argument could lead to outcomes that could damage democracy. Talk about the challenges on both sides of the argument.
Sure. So on one hand, on the states themselves, the government themselves, they are concerned about misinformation. They are concerned about censoring of voices. In particular, the two laws at issue here, the Texas law, the Florida law, those were passed by the legislatures because they were concerned that voices, in particular conservative-leaning voices, were being excluded, censored, moderated by social media, allowing one-sidedness. And that's one of the goals of this particular legislation, is to promote more open-ended discussions. On the other hand, the private companies themselves, Twitter, Facebook, social media, they say they have the right to decide who speaks. They are private parties, and if somebody says offensive material, if somebody says misinformation, violent material online, they have the right to exclude that. So both sides, of course, have legitimate interest, and it is true that, as is always the case with technology, you're never sure what legal implications could follow, but there are definitely some important cases to be decided here.
In fact, the court's decision, which is expected by June, could fundamentally alter the nature of speech on the internet. What do you think the political and economic implications could be?
Sure. Well, if the social media companies win, it means that they would be allowed to continue to moderate speech they don't agree with. So, of course, in an election year, for example, if there's violent speech, if there is misinformation, disinformation is distributed, they'd have the right to take that down, to block users, to rearrange content. And of course, if the states were to win here, then you could argue that it would allow sort of a breaking of a dam and allow all kinds of speech to get out there. Potential misinformation, disinformation, potentially violent speech out there. Of course, businesses have an interest in advertising on platforms that are free of, say, hate speech, disinformation. So there's a business entity here as well that's watching this argument.
And the High Court's review could have sweeping implications for internet regulations on transparency, child safety, competition and artificial intelligence. Talk more about these other areas that could be impacted.
Sure. So artificial intelligence is increasingly pervasive. Social media companies utilize artificial intelligence to screen content, to view content. So this could have implications on the degree to which that technology is used at all, or how those programs could be used to regulate material that truly could be taken down. If the states were to win, you could argue that perhaps some extreme forms of language may still be permissible for social media companies to take those down. Of course, you have interests of children at play. Of course, as children go online, to what degree can social media obtain their information, again, regulate their interactions online, censor material, regulate material? All of those are at play in this case as well.
All right, Blake Klinkner, thank you very much for your time.